Let's talk about doodling. I know you've heard of doodling. Maybe you were a doodler in school. Perhaps you were told to stop that. Maybe you still doodle today, and if that's the case, then you're much farther along than most of us. Throughout the presentation, I'll be sharing what I've found as it relates to doodling and data visualization. There's a lot of overlap between the two, and by adding doodling to your practice of data visualization, I believe your work will be much better received. The kind of data doodling that I'm talking about here is something Catherine Madden, who I'll introduce later, talks about as functional drawing. Here we see Nadi Bremer doing a little functional drawing to get her head around a data visualization concept that will eventually turn into this great work that she has rendered in D3. Another great data sketching example is from one of my friends, Shirley Wu, where she is trying to represent summer movies as fireworks. She's got the height set as star ratings, the size of the firework is a ratio between a couple measures, the color could be represented as genre, so on and so forth. On the Data Sketches website, you can see that Shirley shifts a little bit. She goes from fireworks to flower petals. Words still start with the same letter, but there's a definite shift. Now she's trying to encode the ratings as petals and the genres as colors. Eventually we do see Shirley's idea take form in this final rendering. Those custom petals that she had sketched on the back of a postcard are twisted around that central axis, and we see her colors coming through. They may not match what was on the postcard exactly, but we see them here, and the point is iterations with doodles and drawings do come through and inevitably make for a much nicer end result. Another important project I need to introduce is Dear Data. This was between Georgia Lupi and Stephanie Posovic, where they would both have a theme for the week, a weekly theme, and this could be counting the number of laughs that they had, who they shared it with, etc., however many more dimensions they wanted to capture. They would draw up a data doodle on the back of a postcard and ship it to one another across the Atlantic every week. I hope these examples have shown you that you have a huge opportunity to have some fun with data visualization and express yourself in ways that you may not have before. I do want you to have fun with data. I do want you to doodle, but I also want to make this extremely actionable. And where I want to put your doodling into practice are in those meetings where you're presenting for the first time. I'm sorry for the image in front of you. It was pulled from Google after typing in perfect data visualization. I kid you not. Go try to look it up for yourself right now. Actually, don't. Save it for after the presentation. But the point is, when we're showing our presentation for the first time, there are going to be more critiques than there are opportunities for people to champion your ideas if you put something in front of them such as this. If you put a sketch up there, if you put a rough idea, they're much more likely to get behind your idea. There were many influences for this talk, and a big one was Baba Shiv, professor at Stanford, who coined the imperfect pitch. The quote in front of you reads, "If you build a polished prototype, others will see flaws. If you build a rough prototype, they will see potential." I see so much truth in that quote. When you're first in a presentation and you're showing your work, they quickly look for ways of critiquing color, chart choice, font, what have you. But think about what people are left with when you show them a sketch. You've drawn your idea up with pen, paper, maybe pencil, marker if you wanted to get wild. And there isn't anything to critique. What are they going to do other than talk about the idea? They could try to talk about font, but you literally did it by hand, so what's the point? Let's get to the idea. That's what we're really meeting for. In doing research for this talk, I ran across the name of Robert Sapolsky. I'd never heard of this guy before, but he has done a lot of research in the space that speaks to why people shoot down those ideas when we present them in such a polished manner, and why they may be more accommodating to ideas that seem more rough, sketched up, seemingly boring on the surface. Robert specifically came up when I ran across Baba's X framework. This framework calls out two behavioral paths. The one of high anxiety or high cortisol to comfort or contentment, which has an analogous chemical, serotonin. The other path is one of a dopamine roller coaster, really, where we have low dopamine, we're bored, and we want to get some more, or we do get some more, and that makes us feel excited. People tend to ascribe to one path or another, but there is a loop where we can go from a lot of cortisol, we're very anxious, to a place of serotonin, contentment, comfort, and then we get bored with that, and we want a little bit more excitement in our life, or we strive for that dopamine. Now we've talked about the two paths. I want to think about those two paths as two people, two types, because we generally ascribe to one or another. We're on the hamster wheel of anxious to comfort, comfort maybe being structure, predictability, and that bored to excited being a little bit of variety, some chaos. Because there are people that see the polished presentation in front of them as a liability, as something that's expensive, something that's going to have to be maintained. They see all the flaws in it. How can we hold this off? I don't want it. I need comfort. Get out of my face. But there are also the type 2s that see failure as fun. What you're putting in front of them is a chance to get the dopamine hit that they're looking for. They get excited by your ideas. But a polished pitch still isn't the best way to do it. You can put a rough sketch up there that may at first make everyone feel a bit bored, but then they start to see the promise in what you've put in front of them and the potential excitement that can come of it. I know I've said it before, but I want to reiterate now that there is a lot of benefit from putting work out there that may not be fully fleshed out, polished, what have you. The point of these meetings is to talk about an idea. You need to understand the problem better as the data visualization professional. They need to see what you're thinking, and you do that with a sketch. If you put something that's seemingly finished, polished up there, then they'll start to be concerned. Is this what it's finally going to look like? Are we going with these chart choices? What about another font? How about these colors, not the ones that you've used? Hit the brakes. Stop. That's not what we're here to talk about. As the Data Viz Pro, you as the Data Viz Pro, you want to understand the idea a little bit better. Here's a sketch. Here's a doodle. This is what I'm thinking. How can you help me understand this better so that I can go build something you can actually use in your business? I really do want this idea of doodling to be practical. That's why I did spend a little time up front talking about this setting of a presentation where you show your work for the first time and the paths that people's emotions flow across and the types of people that are going to be in your audience and those that may be more accommodating to ideas that offer them a sense of excitement. Those are the types of people that you want to be trying to win over first. You'll be most successful with those if you focus there. But now I want to get into the meat of the doodles. And a cool idea that's come up is doodling is a chance for us to encode our ideas visually. Tableau is a tool that allows us to leverage this technology to encode our data visually. Why do we do this visualization thing? It's super effective. To teach us how to draw functionally, we have Catherine Madden, who at the Tableau customer conference in Seattle started sketchnoting. Sketchnoting was her practice of taking the ideas the presenters were putting forward, using an app on her iPad to draw up the ideas, again, encoding them visually, labeling them with words to try and get across the ideas that the presenters themselves were putting forward. Catherine has since splintered her practice into courses and lectures and workshops and all sorts of great things. I'm actually taking her visual thinking class through Skillshare right now, and it's fantastic, super fun. Love to have someone like her lead me through the process. And I'm going to share a couple points from her class with you, but I hope you do it for yourself because it's super fun, and this is the kind of step that us who may not doodle naturally or draw or consider ourselves artists, or those things hold us back from doing something that can propel us forward professionally. In the course that I've mentioned that Catherine teaches, which I pulled this from, she breaks down the benefits of functional drawing in 4 ways. The first being the sheer number of ideas that we can generate. Now, it's really hard to come up with one good idea, but if you can come up with a lot of ideas, then maybe you can pick a better one than you would have otherwise. The speed of prototyping is huge. I mean, if you don't like what you've drawn, you crumple up that piece of paper and throw it in the trash. If you want to be nice to the trees, maybe you take your piece of paper and cut it up into bits and then throw that part of the paper in the trash. But that's not what I'm trying to talk about. I'm trying to talk about taking a bar chart that looks one way and maybe making it an area chart or a line chart or a dot plot, and just doing that on the page to see how it looks. Maybe you change the layout of your dashboard, which I find myself doing quite a bit, and drawing it by hand is really, really helpful. The benefit of understanding the idea, I think, comes into play when we're actually able to show it to someone and they turn it around and help us look at it from a different angle. They add a little bit to the idea that we presented through our sketch, and then they share information that we didn't have otherwise. And then we go back and sketch up another and hopefully get closer to matching their understanding. And then in an ability to communicate, Dan Rome has this interesting story where Boeing has made its Dreamliner, they engineered this plane around the world with teams speaking different languages and using different measures. Wings matched to fuselages with teams that were separated by time, space, language, everything, and that thing has to fit just perfectly. So how did they do this? They did it through drawings. They drew everything out. The visual language is a phenomenal way to communicate with one another. So that's what she's speaking to here. I'll talk about a few of my own doodles. It's not fair for me to talk about everyone else's doodles and why you should doodle and not show you what I've done myself. I'm no Shirley or Naughty or Loopy or Stephanie, but I definitely leverage its power to express complicated ideas, like the image you see in the top left, which was a hodgepodge of KPIs, to the image in the bottom right. I think I was trying to talk about data visualization here, how we define an idea, we affirm that idea, we revise it, and then eventually through enough cycles the idea grows. The next sketch I want to talk about is one for Makeover Monday. I really like this car icon that I found in the topic for the week, so I pulled that into the design, sketched that up. It's a lot of fun. Made a couple line charts in my little mobile layout, put some buttons at the bottom. Again, that changed in the dashboard, but you can definitely see some semblance between what I originally doodled and what was eventually produced. Next one's a simple layout on Opal card data, again for Makeover Monday. The title in my doodle actually read, "Where are card holders like you?" The dashboard now reads, "Trips around the Sydney Harbor." So there was, there's always some change that occurs, so just goes to show how mutable these sketches really are. Everything's subject to change. I went with line charts instead of bars. My map obviously looks different, and the rounded rectangles speak to the fact that I want to use cards in place of this. It doesn't have to be perfect, but it'll be there in the final dashboard. The last dashboard that I'm going to show you is the Fringe Fest dashboard. And this was sketched up late after Data Day in Melbourne. And we see more of this, pound signs being used instead of actual numbers, squiggles being used instead of text, just to get the point across. And I encourage you to do this with the drawings that you'll be making soon. Go ahead and mark up the page to reflect what will be there. You don't have to get it perfect in the drawing. That's not the point. The point is to see what it would look like and get some validation from your audience as to whether that's what should be conveyed or not. Then you can change it later.